I'm Ted. I'm 29, and if you met me today, you'd probably assume I was born into money. I drive a late-model Mercedes, wear tailored suits that actually fit, and own a chain of parking lots scattered across the busiest parts of my city. But I wasn't born into wealth. I was born into entitlement, just not my own. See, my sister Kelsey got that part covered for both of us. Growing up, I didn't think much about fairness. I figured every family had a favorite. My parents made theirs obvious early. Kelsey got the new shoes, the upgraded phone, the bigger bedroom when we moved. I got the "you're a boy, you don't need as much space" speech. When she wanted to go to a private art school in New York, they tapped into her college fund and part of mine without asking me. They promised they'd make it up to me. They never did. But that's not even the story. That was just the warm-up act. The real show began after Grandpa died. My grandfather, Arthur, was the only family member who treated me like I mattered. He was an old-school, suit-wearing, hard-as-nails businessman who didn't care about social games or appearances. He started with a single corner store and grew it into a modest but respectable real estate portfolio. Not skyscrapers, but a handful of apartment complexes, commercial properties, and vacant lots in the right zip codes. He used to say, "Land is the only thing they're not making more of. Learn to see value where others see weeds." We weren't close in a cuddly grandpa kind of way, but he respected work ethic, and he respected me. I think he saw a bit of himself in me. During my college summers, while Kelsey was backpacking across Europe on Dad's dime, I was driving Grandpa to tenant meetings, climbing rooftops to check on AC units, learning the ropes, not for pay, but because he asked and I wanted to learn. And apparently, he noticed more than he let on. When Grandpa passed, I was devastated. I'd just graduated with a degree in finance and had plans to maybe partner with him, maybe launch something together. That dream was over in a flash. But I still had hope. Not for handouts, but for a chance. I knew he'd left a will. He was meticulous about everything. I figured maybe he'd left me one property, something small, some seed I could grow. That's when the beach villa happened. We were called to the lawyer's office on a gray Thursday. The mood was thick, sorrow, tension, maybe greed. My parents sat stiff in their chairs. Kelsey showed up 20 minutes late, fresh from a tanning salon or maybe a spa, sunglasses still perched on her head, and not a single tear shed. The lawyer, a wiry man named Mitchell, opened the folder and began reading through Grandpa's will. I barely heard half of it, until I caught the words "fully furnished beach property in Crescent Bay, complete with transfer of title and a maintenance fund." My eyes flicked to Kelsey. She grinned. That was her gift. A beachfront villa with wraparound balconies and modern furnishings, smack in one of the most expensive areas on the coast. I'd been there with Grandpa once. It was his retreat, his place to disconnect, but even then, he said it was more investment than escape. It was worth well over $1 million, easily too with the furniture and land. Then Mitchell turned to me, and to my grandson, Theodore. I leaned forward. "I leave parcel 43B on Harbor Row, unfurnished." There was a pause. I blinked. "Wait, that's the empty lot." Mitchell nodded. My mother laughed, actually laughed out loud, and said, "Well, Ted, I guess you get to build something. That'll build character." Kelsey chimed in, smirking. "Hey, maybe you can open a lemonade stand or something." The room chuckled. I didn't. I knew the lot. Harbor Row was a weird, liminal place in the city. 1 block from the upscale downtown district, but still gritty. It was wedged behind a rundown nightclub, bordered on one side by a self-storage facility and on the other by an alley that reeked of garbage water and broken dreams. And it was mine. The lawyer handed over a thin envelope, title transfer, property map, a copy of the will. That was it. No maintenance fund, no furniture, not even a lock on a gate because there was no gate. On the way out, Dad patted me on the back like he was handing out participation trophies. "You'll figure it out, son. That kind of place, if you're smart, could be worth something one day." Mom added, "Besides, Kelsey's always had a knack for interior design. You wouldn't even know what to do with a villa." I nodded. I didn't say a word. I just stared at the envelope in my hands, then looked at my sister twirling the keys to a multi-million-dollar mansion around her finger like a lollipop. That was the moment I stopped expecting anything from my parents. Love, maybe. Fairness? Never again. I didn't get angry, not right away. I got focused. I went to see the lot the next morning. It was exactly what I expected. Cracked asphalt, weeds punching through concrete, broken glass near the edges. The nightclub next door had a busted neon sign, the kind that hummed and buzzed like a dying fly. There was graffiti on the utility poles, 2 overflowing dumpsters baking in the sun, and a suspicious-looking mattress folded against the back wall. It was, in a word, trash. But it was my trash. I spent the first hour just walking the perimeter. I mapped the sunlight, noted where the shadows fell in the evening, watched the cars pass by, the foot traffic from the nearby bar. I stood in the middle of it and pictured something more, something mine. I didn't have much money saved, but I had enough for permits, a power washer, and a few calls to local contractors. I started small, cleared the lot, power washed the pavement, put up new fencing, installed floodlights, added a kiosk. Then I noticed something interesting. Friday nights, the club's lot overflowed by 9 p.m. Cars were circling, some double parking, some just leaving. That's when it clicked. I added a sign. Event parking, $10 flat rate. The first weekend, I made $480 in cash. The next, over $600. By month 3, I had a second kiosk installed and partnered with a towing company to keep the space clear when needed. I started marketing online, offering parking passes for nearby concerts and events. Then I bought the adjacent alleyway, then the corner plot, then another lot across the street. My trash lot became the seed of something way bigger than I imagined. But my parents didn't notice at first. Why would they? I wasn't posting about it, flaunting it, or inviting them over for grand tours. I was too busy building. It took 3 years, but by 28, I was earning more in passive income from parking than both of them earned in a year combined. Kelsey's villa? It sat mostly empty. She visited maybe twice a year. She rented it out once and got a bad review for mold in the bathroom and broken AC. Last I heard, she couldn't afford the maintenance and stopped paying property tax altogether. Then came the phone call. Dad's voice was firm, but oddly warm. Hey, Ted, your mother and I were talking. We were thinking, maybe it's time we re-evaluated Grandpa's will. I felt my jaw tighten. Re-evaluated. Well, Kelsey's been having a tough time. Property taxes, hurricane insurance, repairs. And, well, your lot, what you've done with it, is quite the business now. I didn't say anything. He continued, it just doesn't seem right that you got such a valuable asset and your sister is struggling. We think maybe the parking business should be a family thing. Shared. That was when the first flash of rage hit. But I didn't explode. I just said, I'll think about it, and hung up. A week later, I got a cease and desist letter. Apparently, my parents had consulted a lawyer and were now claiming that the intent of the will had been misunderstood and that both properties were meant to be shared equally among the children. They were demanding I either split profits or return the lot to the estate for proper redistribution. They picked the wrong son to push, and they had no idea what I'd been preparing behind the scenes. Because what came next wasn't just about lawyers or contracts. It was personal. After I got the letter, I sat in my office, staring at the wall, heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. It wasn't just a legal threat. It was betrayal, packaged in a manila envelope with my parents' return address on the corner. They'd actually hired a lawyer to come after me. Me, their son, the one who built something from nothing, the one who never asked for a penny, who didn't even flinch when they handed my sister $1 million home like it was a party favor. And now that I'd made something out of my empty lot, now that I'd proven I didn't need their approval or their money, they wanted a piece of it. No, not even a piece. They wanted control. That was the night something in me cracked. A kind of final splinter. The last little hope that maybe they just didn't know how much they hurt me. That if I just explained, if I just worked harder, they'd finally say, we're proud of you. But they weren't proud. They were threatened. I didn't call them. I didn't yell. I just started documenting everything. Emails, texts, call logs. I pulled the title deed. Took photos of the original documents Grandpa gave me. I called Mitchell, Grandpa's lawyer, and requested a notarized copy of the original will with timestamps. I reviewed the chain of ownership. Clean as a whistle. My name was on every document. Not a trust, not shared, not ambiguous. It was mine. But I knew this wasn't going to be a clean fight. Not with them. 2 days later, Kelsey showed up at my office unannounced. I was reviewing contracts for a new location I was buying when my assistant buzzed me. Ted, there's a woman here. Says she's your sister? My stomach twisted. I hadn't seen her in almost a year. Not since Christmas, when she stormed out after I didn't offer to help her pay her villa's heating bill. I told my assistant to send her in. She walked in like she owned the place. Black sunglasses, a faux fur coat, even though it was barely 50 degrees out, and those platform boots she always wore to look taller. She looked around with a mixture of disbelief and irritation. "This is your office." I didn't answer, just gestured to the chair across from me. She sat down with a dramatic sigh, tossed her sunglasses on the table, and said, "Okay, look, I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk like adults." I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled. "You're 2 days late for that. Your lawyer beat you to it." She rolled her eyes. "That was Dad's idea, not mine. I told them it was overkill. Honestly, I thought we could just have a civil conversation." I didn't say anything. I wanted to see where she was going with this. She shifted in her seat. "Look, you've clearly done well. Like, surprisingly well. Honestly, I didn't think you had it in you." "Thanks," I said dryly. She ignored my tone and kept going. "But the villa's been a disaster. The taxes are insane. The maintenance? Forget it. I had to fire the cleaner because she stole some jewelry, and the roof leaks now. And I just found out I have to pay for coastal erosion insurance or something. I don't even know what that is. Sounds rough." She tilted her head. "Don't do that. Don't be smug. I'm being vulnerable here." I almost laughed. She continued, "What I'm saying is, I think it's only fair we revisit Grandpa's will. I mean, be honest. Do you really think he wanted you to get some parking lot and me to get stuck with a money pit? He probably thought you'd sell it." I didn't. "Well, yeah. And now it's a gold mine." I raised an eyebrow. "And that's my fault." She leaned in. "No, I'm just saying, maybe you could cut me in. I mean, if we went to court." "We are going to court. You've already filed." She paused. "I told Dad to wait, okay? I didn't sign anything yet. I was hoping you'd just see reason. We're family, Ted." That word, family, it hit me like a slap. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, looked out at the lot across the street. Cars lining up, paying to park in the space I once stood in alone with a power washer and a folding chair. I turned back to her. "You got a fully furnished villa on the beach, Kelsey. I got a piece of cracked concrete behind a nightclub. You didn't complain when you got your end of the deal. You didn't offer to split your inheritance. Not when you were sipping champagne on the balcony. Not when you posted pictures of your getaway life on Instagram. Not when you hosted that influencer retreat and told everyone it was your house. You didn't say a word then." Her face flushed. "That's different." "No, it's not. The only difference is now I have something valuable, and suddenly it's not fair anymore. Suddenly it's up for negotiation." She stood too, arms crossed. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being done. You want to go to court? Fine. I'll bring every email, every photo, every record. But don't come here pretending to be reasonable while you've got one foot in the courtroom and the other on my neck." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she grabbed her sunglasses, shoved them on, and hissed, "You're gonna regret this." I smiled. "No, I don't think I will." She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. And that was just the beginning. Within a week, the story started spreading through the family. Not from me, of course. I kept my mouth shut. But somehow, a very skewed version of events started making the rounds. According to my Aunt Lorna, who called me in hushed tones one evening, I was withholding family assets, exploiting a loophole in Grandpa's will, and taking advantage of Kelsey's kindness. Kindness. Kelsey hadn't been kind since she was old enough to learn she could cry and get her way. The narrative was spreading fast. I was the greedy son, the ungrateful one, the one who let success go to his head. My parents leaned into it hard. They started calling relatives we hadn't spoken to in years. There was talk of healing the rift in the family, but it always ended with, "Well, if Ted would just do the right thing." I started getting messages from extended cousins, people I barely remembered. Some friendly, some passive-aggressive. One even asked if I was hiring. Another sent me a link to a meditation retreat and told me, "Maybe you should clear your mind before making rash decisions that hurt people." But the final straw came a few weeks later. I went out to my lot, now one of 5 I owned in the downtown district, to inspect a new camera system we'd installed. As I pulled in, I noticed something odd. Spray paint. Red, jagged lines all across the kiosk. Thief. Family trader. Another line across the asphalt. You'll lose everything. I filed a police report. Pulled the security footage. The grainy image was blurry, but it was Kelsey's car. Her ridiculous convertible with the vanity plate she got when she turned 18. That night, I sat in my apartment, 10 floors above the city, and stared at my phone. There were missed calls from my mother, 2 from my dad, a voicemail from someone claiming to be concerned for the family's legacy. Then the knock came. It was nearly 11 p.m. When I opened the door, I found my parents standing there. They didn't look angry. They looked tired. Mom stepped in first, eyes glossy. "Ted, honey, can we talk?" Dad followed, face unreadable. "It's time we cleared the air." I didn't say anything. I let them in. They sat on the couch like strangers in a hotel lobby. Awkward. Nervous. "We didn't mean for it to go this far," Mom said softly. "It's just, your sister's struggling. She's always been more sensitive. You know that. She vandalized my business." Mom flinched. "She made a mistake." I stared at them. "And you think I'm the one who needs to make this right?" Dad finally spoke. "We're not saying that. We're just asking you to be the bigger person. You have more than enough." More than enough. There it was again. I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You think because I made something out of the garbage you gave me, I should feel guilty?" "We just want peace," Mom whispered. "Can't we all just share?" "No," I said flatly. Dad stood. "Then I guess we will see you in court." And with that, they left. I stood at the window again, watching them disappear into the night. The family that told me to build character was now trying to tear down what I built. But I had one last card to play. One grandpa left me long before the will. And when I played it, they'd wish they'd never even heard the word parking. I didn't show up to the first court hearing. Not physically, anyway. My attorney, Samir, cool, soft-spoken, and ruthlessly prepared, handled it. He told me to stay focused on the business. "You're not just defending what you have, Ted. You're proving you earned it. Every invoice, every permit, every minute you spent power washing that lot matters. Let me deal with the circus." I took his advice, mostly because I didn't want to see them, my parents, my sister, sitting in that courtroom with their smug little case file, arguing that they were victims. But even as Samir built the legal defense like a fortress, things outside the courtroom started to fall apart. It began with the city. Apparently, someone had filed a formal complaint that one of my parking lots was violating a new zoning ordinance that hadn't even gone into effect yet. My permits were all in order, but it didn't matter. The inspector showed up unannounced, clipboard in hand, all business. 2 citations. Then 3. Then a warning about future fines if the property remained out of compliance. I knew this game. Someone was pushing behind the scenes. Someone with time, money, and motive. Then came the bank. My main account, used for payroll, maintenance costs, and daily operations, was flagged for suspicious activity. Suddenly, withdrawals were frozen. I called customer service, furious, and got passed from one department to another like a hot potato. Finally, a manager admitted that someone had anonymously reported potential fraud. No details, just enough to trigger a freeze pending investigation. That month, I missed payroll for the first time in 3 years. I called each of my team members personally, explained the situation, promised to cover their pay from my own savings. Most were understanding. A few weren't. My head of operations quit. Then the lot across from City Hall got tagged. Not just graffiti, full-blown destruction. Someone broke the kiosk screen, slashed the tire of the security patrol vehicle, and left a dead raccoon on the lot, right where customers park. It was sick and calculated. I started sleeping with a bat next to my bed. I told myself it was just a rough patch, a storm. But every time I tried to stand back up, something else hit. The news came next. A local community spotlight blog ran a smear piece. Anonymous tip, no sources, accusing me of exploiting my grandfather's legacy, underpaying workers, and bullying my family into silence. They posted an old photo of me at a family dinner, cropped tight, with the caption, "Wealth changes people, sometimes for the worse." I knew exactly who fed them that story. It didn't matter that it wasn't true. People read it. The phone rang less. Some businesses I partnered with started pulling out of contracts. A downtown property I'd been in negotiations to buy suddenly wasn't on the market anymore. And still, I didn't go to court. Samir handled it all, filings, affidavits, countermotions. But the weight of it bled into my everyday life. I was eating less, sleeping less, checking security cameras at 2 a.m. like a paranoid lunatic. There was one night, about a month into the spiral, when I walked to the original Harbor Row lot, alone. No employees. No clipboard. No game face. Just me in a hoodie, hands shoved deep into my pockets, staring at the cracked pavement. I stood where I first power washed that oil-stained ground. I remembered the folding chair. The single customer who paid in crumpled bills that first night. The thrill of making $40 on nothing but hustle. Now the lights were flickering. A few weeds had punched their way back through the cracks. I sat down on the edge of the lot and cried. Not loud, not messy, just a quiet, bitter kind of grief. Not because I lost money, but because I realized how little any of it mattered to the people who were supposed to love me. My success hadn't made them proud. It had made me a target. I felt alone in a way I hadn't since I was a kid. And for a while, I stayed there. In that space between anger and numbness. The fall had happened. The dust hadn't even settled yet. I was still tumbling. But something shifted in that quiet. I looked around, really looked. At the space I'd built. The new kiosk with its shattered screen. The floodlights that still worked. The signage I designed myself. The painted lines I'd commissioned. All of it was still mine. Wounded, maybe. But standing. So was I? The next morning, I fired my assistant. It wasn't personal. But she had leaked information, updates on case filings, payments, even a vendor list. Samir found the evidence buried in a forwarded email. We couldn't prove she was in contact with Kelsey or my parents, but we didn't have to. Trust, once cracked, didn't go back to normal. Then I called my old friend Gabe. Gabe and I had been roommates freshman year. He dropped out to start a digital forensics company. At the time, I thought he was reckless. Turned out, he was just early. I asked him for a favor. Pull everything. My lot cameras, my office cameras, phone logs, email metadata. I want to know who's been leaking, who's been talking to whom, and if there's any pattern to these vandalism incidents. He got to work. In the meantime, I tightened ship. I consolidated my accounts. Moved payroll to a new bank. Hired a second security company, more discreet, better background checks. Started rotating car patrols through the lots at night. I reopened negotiations with the city for a side lot I knew they wanted to rezone for event space. Offered them a steep discount. It got their attention. Most importantly, I went quiet. I stopped posting online. I stopped taking bait from cousins texting me concerned messages. I ignored every call from my mother. I didn't respond to the third, fourth, or fifth cease and desist. Instead, I worked. Repainting the lots. Replacing broken systems. Rehiring smart, loyal staff. No fanfare. Just action. Then Gabe called. I found something, he said, voice low. He sent me a report. My ex-assistant had been emailing someone with a burner address tied to Kelsey's old event planner. More than that, he traced a wire transfer from an account under my mother's name to a shell LLC that paid the fake news blog that ran the smear article. It was all there. Every receipt. Every breadcrumb. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something warm spark in my chest. Not revenge. Clarity. They didn't just try to take what I built. They tried to destroy me to get it. And I wasn't going to let them. So I pivoted. I started working with a PR consultant I'd once helped find parking space for a local art festival. She owed me a favor. I told her everything. Truth only, no spin. We wrote a piece. My story. Titled it. What my family taught me about ownership, loyalty, and the price of success. We didn't publish it yet. But we would. I moved my court hearing to in person. I wanted to look them in the eye when I told the truth. Meanwhile, I started buying back into the game. The lot next to the nightclub? I leased it to a late-night food truck collective. Tripled the revenue. The alleyway behind that. Bought it, paved it, and turned it into a private event valet space. The city lot I offered at a discount. They signed the deal. The zoning violations? All dismissed. Samir had filed an appeal with evidence that the complainant, an anonymous neighbor, shared an IP address with a device tied to my dad's company laptop. I was rebuilding. Stronger. Smarter. Sharper. And they had no idea what was coming. But there was still one moment. One person I hadn't faced yet. Grandpa. Not literally, of course. He was gone. But he left something behind. Something I hadn't touched. Something I'd almost forgotten about until Samir brought it up while reviewing the will again. A letter. Labeled, for Ted, when the time is right. It was still sealed. Samir handed it to me carefully, like it might crumble in his fingers. It's your call. But maybe it's time. I didn't open it right away. I took it home. Set it on the table. Made a cup of tea. Sat with it in the silence of my apartment. Then, finally, I opened it. It was short. Handwritten in Grandpa's type. Neat script. Ted, if you're reading this, you've already seen what I saw years ago. That sometimes, the people closest to us can't stand to see us succeed. Especially when we do it without them. I gave you that lot not because it was easy, but because I knew you wouldn't quit. I knew you'd see it for what it could be. Don't let them drag you down. Build higher. They'll come for it. Let them. Then show them who it really belonged to all along. Arthur. I sat there for a long time, just staring at that last line. Let them. Then show them. I folded the letter, put it in a frame, and hung it above my desk. That was the day I stopped seeing myself as a victim of their greed. I was the survivor of it, and I was about to show them exactly what I'd become. There's a certain clarity that comes after you've hit bottom. When the dust settles, when the anger cools, and all that's left is strategy, cold, deliberate strategy. That's where I lived for the next 3 months. Not in rage, not in grief, but in calm, meticulous planning. My family still thought they were winning. My parents were doubling down on the shared inheritance narrative. Kelsey had gone radio silent on social media, but she was quietly attending charity events, cozying up to people in city council, and presenting herself as some kind of community-minded homeowner under siege from her greedy brother. Word was spreading that I had taken advantage of Grandpa's deteriorating mind, that the will was suspicious, that I'd used him to gain control of family property. None of it was true, but the rumor mill didn't care. I started getting strange stares when I went to certain business meetings. A few vendors asked if the legal battle would affect future payments. One partner, a guy I'd worked with for years, called to pause a joint project until things cooled off. I realized then, I wasn't just fighting for money anymore. I was fighting for my name. So I started building something bigger than parking lots. I started building the case. Samir and Gabe were with me every step. Gabe traced back more digital connections, emails from my mother's work laptop, burner phones that pinged near my properties right before acts of vandalism, message metadata from the fake accounts that left bad reviews on my business pages. One Gmail account had been used to submit both the anonymous city complaints and send PayPal donations to the local blog that smeared me. We traced that account to a VPN exit node in, get this, Kelsey's own villa. The same one she claimed she couldn't afford to keep maintained. Samir was practically drooling. This is malicious defamation. Coordinated interference with your business. We're not just playing defense anymore, Ted. We're going on the attack. I nodded, but I wasn't ready to strike. Not yet. There was one more piece to gather. See, while the legal side was crucial, what I needed was public leverage. I needed people to know the truth, but not in a he said/she said way. I needed to show them. So I called up Jamie. Jamie had been a client years ago, a documentary videographer who needed parking for a shoot downtown. She'd since built a strong YouTube channel, focused on urban development, city corruption, and business underdogs. When I explained my story, the real story, she was instantly hooked. Let me film it, she said. Not just a sit-down interview. I want footage, documentation, timelines. Let's walk the lots. Let's show the journey. So we did. Over several weekends, she followed me through every location. She interviewed old employees, pulled archive footage, even visited the city records office and caught on camera the exact zoning codes I'd been falsely accused of violating. She titled the video, "I built a business from nothing. Now my family wants to steal it." We didn't post it yet. I told her to hold until the moment was right. In the meantime, I made sure all the puzzle pieces were ready. Here's what I gathered. Legal documents. Will, title deeds, notarized letters, timestamps. All clean. Digital evidence, metadata, burner accounts, financial trails. Security footage, high-res video of Kelsey's car near the vandalism site. Footage of her at a city planning meeting days before the anonymous zoning complaint. Witnesses, 3 employees who overheard calls from my ex-assistant discussing family revenge. One even had a voice memo she recorded when things got weird. Paper trail, bank freezes, fake business complaints, fake negative reviews, all with timestamps matching family activity. And then, finally, the bonus round. The tax records. You remember the beachfront villa? The one that Kelsey got stuck with? Turns out, she hadn't been paying her property taxes for nearly 2 years. It was sitting on the edge of tax lien foreclosure. Samir pulled the records. She's not just lying about the hardship, he said. She's losing the house. And she knows it. That was the real reason they came after me. They thought if they could shake me hard enough, legally or emotionally. I'd either fold, pay them off, or hand over a share of the business just to make the noise stop. They didn't expect me to rebuild, and they sure didn't expect me to prepare counteroffensive firepower. But there was one last chess piece I hadn't moved yet. Grandpa's old lawyer, Mitchell. He'd been keeping quiet, trying to stay neutral. But I asked him for a coffee. Just one conversation. We met at an old cafe near the courthouse. Mitchell was still wearing the same three-piece suit I remembered from the will reading. He had this careful way of speaking, as if every sentence was a contract. "You've been through a lot, Ted," he said, stirring sugar into his tea. "You've seen some of it," I replied. He nodded. "Arthur always said you had steel in you." "Quiet steel." I looked him in the eye. "I need to know something. Did Grandpa ever mention them? My parents? My sister? Did he suspect they'd come after me?" Mitchell paused, then reached into his briefcase. He pulled out a folder. "I never showed this before because it wasn't legally required. But your grandfather was thorough. He wrote supplements to the will. Not binding addendums, just personal notes. For context, he handed me one of the pages. It was a letter addressed to Mitchell. If they try to take it from Ted, remind them what I said. I gave him the land so he'd learn to build. If he builds something great, it's because he earned it, not because I gave him something valuable. If anyone says otherwise, they weren't paying attention." Below it, a scribbled postscript. "P.S. If Kelsey complains, remind her that I offered her the Harbor Row lot first." She said, "That rat trap? Gross. No thanks." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Mitchell smiled faintly. "She didn't want it. You were the second choice. But once she got her villa, she felt like she'd won. Until you made that rat trap profitable. It was the missing piece. Not only had Grandpa intentionally given me the harder gift, he had offered it to Kelsey first. She rejected it. That detail changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just about ownership. It was about choice. I left that meeting feeling lighter than I had in weeks. And on the walk back, something clicked. It was time. I called Jamie. "Upload the video. But don't just publish it. Premiere it. Friday night, 8 p.m. "Got it," she said. "You sure?" I've never been more sure. That same day, I scheduled a full-page ad in the local business journal for Saturday morning. The headline? I was given a strip of asphalt. I turned it into an empire. Now they want it back. Underneath was a QR code that linked to Jamie's video, plus a brief statement. "In honor of my grandfather, Arthur Daniels, who believed in work over inheritance. Everything I built was earned. Everything they're trying to take was already rejected. This is my truth. Ted Daniels." We synced it perfectly. Friday, video premiere. Saturday, print ad. Sunday, legal countersuit filing, with every shred of evidence attached. Samir called it the holy trinity of revenge. And it worked faster than I expected. Friday night, the video exploded. 10,000 views in 2 hours. Then 20. Then 50. By midnight, #ParkingEmpire was trending locally on Twitter. Business owners shared stories of how I'd helped them. Former employees posted about their time working with me. Even people I didn't know were commenting. You can't give someone vision. You either see the value, or you don't. Ted saw it. Imagine getting a beachfront villa and still trying to steal your brother's parking lot faced with tears of joy. This man turned a piece of trash into treasure. Respect. But Saturday morning was when the real flood began. My inbox lit up with new business proposals. 3 city council members reached out for a meeting. 2 reporters called asking for interviews. And then a voicemail from my mother. "Teddy, we saw the video. Please call us. We didn't know it would go this far." I didn't respond. Neither did Samir. He was too busy preparing the final blow. Because Monday morning, we were filing something new. Not just a countersuit. A full-scale civil complaint. Defamation. Business interference. Malicious prosecution. Backed by evidence. Affidavits. Financial records. Footage. And, just for flair, the signed note from Mitchell confirming Kelsey rejected the Harbor Row lot first. It wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about consequences. Real ones. The kind they never thought they'd face. And the best part? They still didn't know what else I had planned. Because while they were busy bracing for court, they hadn't noticed what was happening with the villa. The villa hit the auction block 3 weeks later. Kelsey must have thought she still had time. Maybe she assumed someone would bail her out, or that she could stall with another lie or plea. But the city doesn't care about family drama. She'd been skipping taxes for too long. Add penalties, late fees, and hurricane risk insurance violations, and suddenly even beachfront luxury couldn't save her. It was poetic. She lost the thing she thought made her superior, the same way she had tried to make me feel small, by pretending that inheritance equaled worth. And now, that shimmering villa she used to flaunt on social media? Gone. Sold at auction to a private buyer. For a fraction of its value. But the best part? I was the buyer. Technically, it wasn't me who showed up at the auction. That would have ruined the surprise. I sent in a shell LLC I'd been setting up quietly, a trust, run by Gabe, whose name wouldn't raise red flags. I bought the villa for $832,000, less than half of what it had been appraised for when Grandpa was alive. When the auctioneer's gavel dropped, I had to stop myself from smiling. But I wasn't done, because Kelsey wasn't the only one who needed to face the music. Let's rewind. The civil case we filed hit like a sledgehammer. Samir had crafted every paragraph like it was a blade. Sharp, surgical, and undeniable. Count 1. Defamation, backed by the leaked emails, the metadata from the burner accounts, and the PayPal trail connecting my mother to the smear blog. Count 2. Business interference. The security footage of Kelsey's car near the vandalism sites, the fake zoning complaints, and sworn statements from my employees, including the recorded conversation with my ex-assistant. Count 3. Malicious prosecution, showing how they weaponized the court system to harass and destabilize me, knowing full well the will was valid and the lot was mine. We filed it Monday morning. By Thursday, their attorney had sent over a desperate email, willing to discuss settlement. Samir and I didn't reply. Not yet. Let them stew. Instead, I called Mitchell, Grandpa's old lawyer, and asked him if he could arrange a meeting. Not legal. Personal. A final conversation. One room. Me, my parents, Kelsey. He sighed but agreed. We met in Mitchell's office the following Tuesday. I wore the same gray blazer I'd worn to the will reading, just for effect. They looked rough. Dad was paler than usual. Mom was tense, her lips pressed together like she was physically holding in another lecture. Kelsey looked like she hadn't slept in days. No makeup, hair pulled back. The shadows under her eyes told me everything I needed to know. They didn't expect this. Didn't expect me. Mitchell opened the meeting. I believe Ted has something he'd like to say. I stood, pulled out a folder, and set it on the table. This is a settlement agreement, I said. But it's not what you think. Their lawyer, a jittery man in an oversized suit, leaned forward. Our clients are willing to negotiate equitable ownership. No, I cut in. That's off the table. This isn't a partnership discussion. This is a ceasefire offer. I slid the papers toward them. Here's what I'm offering. You drop your case completely. You sign a public retraction, acknowledging the will was valid, that you acted based on emotion, and that the business is solely mine. You issue that statement to the blog that slandered me. You send it to the city. You post it publicly. Mom's face turned red. You want us to apologize to strangers? I didn't flinch. Not to strangers. To the truth. And to me. Kelsey scoffed. And what do we get? I pulled out another paper. This one had a photo attached. Of the villa. I bought it, I said calmly. 3 weeks ago. Through a trust. It's mine now. Fully paid, taxes cleared. Her mouth dropped open. You what? I looked at her. Not with malice, not with gloating, just calm inevitability. I'm giving you 30 days to move out. That's already generous. And if you want to take anything with you, furniture, fixtures, whatever, you'd better act fast. She looked to Mom and Dad, desperate. You said you had a plan. Dad slammed his hand on the table. You manipulative little. Samir cut in, voice like ice. Careful. Threats in this setting are admissible. Dad, shut up. I turned back to them. If you don't sign the settlement, I continued, I pursue full damages. I take it all the way. I bring every piece of evidence to court. Every email, every fake account, every voicemail and camera angle. And I'll win. We both know it. They sat in stunned silence. Then I played the final card. I reached into my folder and pulled out Grandpa's note, the one Mitchell had given me, and read it aloud. If anyone says otherwise, they weren't paying attention. Arthur. Kelsey's eyes welled up. Whether it was regret, shame, or just loss, I didn't care. I stood. You have 24 hours to sign. If you don't, I file. And the villa becomes an Airbnb. I walked out before they could speak again. They signed the next morning. The fallout. The retraction made headlines. Jamie followed up her documentary with a second video. Update. They tried to destroy him. Now they regret everything. It went viral, even bigger than the first one. I started getting interview requests from finance podcasts, entrepreneurship blogs, even a feature in a regional business magazine. But I didn't do most of them. I wasn't interested in fame, just peace. And I got it. The civil case was dropped. I dismissed my own lawsuit after they paid a modest settlement, enough to cover legal fees and a little extra. I donated half of it to a youth entrepreneurship program Grandpa used to support. Quietly. No plaque. No press release. Kelsey moved out of the villa in 28 days. I kept my word. Didn't touch a single piece of her furniture. Let her leave with dignity if she wanted it. But she didn't leave gracefully. She posted a rant online, blaming everyone. Me, the city, even Grandpa. It got a couple hundred angry comments. But no traction. The world had already heard the truth. After she left, I walked into the villa for the first time. It was beautiful. High ceilings, ocean view, polished floors. But it felt empty. Not in a physical sense, emotionally. It didn't feel like a prize. It felt like a warning. I put it on the market the next month. Sold it for $1.3 million. The money? I reinvested. Into Harbor Holdings. A new company. Not just parking anymore, but infrastructure, commercial properties, urban development, and mentorship. I set up a fund to help young entrepreneurs who came from nothing, the ones who got character instead of capital, because I knew what that felt like. As for my parents, we haven't spoken since the signing. They sent a birthday card this year. It was blank. And honestly, that suited me fine. Sometimes silence is the only apology they're capable of. And that's okay, because I don't need their approval anymore. I built something real, and I kept it. They gave me a strip of pavement. I gave myself an empire. That was always the difference. They waited for things to be handed to them. I just got to work.